Hello everybody, it is January 27th, 2019. This is Frosty the Songman coming at you with another album review. On this day, well, let me do something different. I normally say a little bit of music history in the beginning of my videos, but I would like to honor on this day, January 27th, the people that died in World War II. Because a lot of times you hear about one certain group of people that died in that time period, but you don't see any movies made about all these other groups. You don't see any kind of heartfelt, emotional movies about all these other people that died in World War II. So I'd like to just call out today, these are people that died of direct injuries or disease, famine, some cause of World War II. So Poland lost 6 million souls in World War II. Dutch East Indies, 3.5 million. Yeah, a place so small, it lost 3.5 million people. Germany lost 7 million. Japan, 3 million. China lost 18 million. 18 million Chinese people killed. You don't see many museums about that or movies about that. India, 2 million people. You may not have even known one Indian died. You know, I mean, they're part of the British Empire, so that was the main reason they got, you know, so many high numbers with that. But still, I mean, you never think about Indians dying in World War II because it's not marketed, you know. Soviet Union, 23 million. 23 million people living in the Soviet Union died. You don't see many movies on that, do you? Russia had a total of 13 million killed. Ukraine had 7 million. And I'm going to get to the music really quick. I'm finishing up right now. Yugoslavia had over 1 million people. So the total of everyone killed in World War II is estimated to be between 70 million on the low end and 85 million on the high end. So yeah, let's remember everybody killed in World War II. And not just a small group that Hollywood wants us to constantly be reminded about. All right, so tonight I'm going to review Pyromania, Def Leppard. I actually don't have this album. I had it for years. I probably lost it or somewhere along the way I don't have it, but that's what the album cover looks like. So Def Leppard, let's get into it. Def Leppard is a band from Sheffield, England. They were formed in 1977. Rick Savage, Tony Kinning, and Pete Willis were all students at Tapton School in Sheffield, South Yorkshire. They formed a band called Atomic Mass. Joe Elliott, who turned out to be the lead singer of Def Leppard, met one of the founding members of Atomic Mass after Joe missed a bus and happened to be standing on the street. Willis, a member of the Atomic Mass, was the one who was at the bus stop too at the same time, and they got to talking, and he arranged an audition for Joe because I guess they got to talking about music. So Joe Elliott was only 18 at the time when he did the audition. The band decided that, hey, this Joe guy is actually going to be better on vocals than guitar, even though he auditioned on guitar. So after the audition, Joe was actually accepted as the singer of the band. So Joe Elliott suggested the band name Def Leppard, which was originally a band he had thought up while writing reviews of imaginary rock bands in English class. So I guess he'd have this notebook and write about reviews of rock bands. But he spelled it Def Leppard, like the real way you spell deaf and the real way you spell leopard. But I think some in the band said, well, that sounds too punk. That sounds like a punk band. So they changed it to DEF Leppard. So that sounded more hard rock and metal to them. So that's the reason why it's spelled that way. A lot of metal bands were doing that sort of thing. Like Led Zeppelin, you know, they probably took a cue from that. All right, so in January 1978, Steve Clark joined the band on guitar. In Steve's audition, he played Lynyrd Skynyrd's Freebird in its entirety. So that's an interesting fact. Steve Clark, the guitarist, played Freebird to audition for Def Leppard. Throughout 1979, they gigged a lot around England and gained a lot of loyal hard rock and metal fans. Their popularity led to a record deal on Phonogram/Vertigo Records, which was Mercury Records in the United States. Their debut album was On Through the Night, released in 1980. This is a good album. I like it. It's a strong debut album. It's cool. I like it. I'd pick it up. I like it so much, I even bought it in cassette, too. I mean, how big of a dork am I? I've got some obscure Def Leppard album in cassette and CD. Alright, moving on. So it's a very good album. The album hit the top 15 in the UK. One of the songs on the album was a nod to America. It was called Hello America. And which was signaling they want to make it in America, which kind of miffed some of their loyal English fans. They're kind of like, hey, what about us here in England? We made you guys. But I think they already had their eyes on America early on. So the band caught the attention of AC/DC producer Mutt Lange, who agreed to work on their second album, High and Dry. And this album was released in 1981. It's actually full color. This is just a Xerox, a photocopy. But that's kind of what the album looked like. This is actually from the 80s. This was made. We are the cassette generation, Generation X. So 1980, that was released. Or sorry, 81, High and Dry. Mutt Lange really helped to make Def Leppard their sound. Give it that kind of heavy, thick rock sound that even a lot of AC/DC albums have. Like, I think Mutt Lange produced, For Those About to Rock, kind of the the copper-colored album. I'm pretty sure he did that one, which is an awesomely produced album. All right, anyway, so High and Dry actually didn't sell that well, even though it was a great album. Bringing on the Heartbreak, however, the band video for Bringing on the Heartbreak became one of the first metal videos played on MTV in 1982. And I remember when MTV first came out, I remember that video, Bringing on the Heartbreak. I thought it was cool. So yeah, I remember it back then. After High and Dry was released, they did a European tour and an American tour, opening for Ozzy Osbourne and Blackfoot. Blackfoot was a band from Jacksonville, Florida. They did that song Train, 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 get me out of this town. Alright, Pete Willis was fired from Def Leppard in 1982, in the summer of 82, due to being a drunk. He was replaced by Phil. That was a harsh way to put it. He had alcohol problems. He was replaced by Phil Collins the very next day. Not Phil Collins. Not I can see it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lordy. Not that Phil Collins. Phil Collin. Phil had been guitarist for the band called Girl. It was the band called Girl. Probably based in Sheffield area. But anyway, this personnel change happened during the recording of their third album, Pyromania. So I find that pretty interesting. Like, this album I'm reviewing, they lost a guitarist and replaced him with another one in the middle of this album. And, the album just turned out awesome. Pyromania was released on January 20th, 1983, and was also produced by Mutt Lange. The lead single, Photograph, catapulted Def Leppard into stardom. Photograph was the most requested video clip on MTV, supplanting child molester Michael Jackson's Beat It. Who knows what if Michael Jackson actually molested kids? I'd say it's kind of like Bill Cosby. It looks more than likely Bill Cosby did those drugging of women and raping them, and it looks more than likely Michael Jackson did with kids. And obviously the estate is trying to cover it up and say that's ludicrous, but Usually where there's smoke, there's fire, and with Michael Jackson, there's been a lot of smoke. All right, singles, Rock of Ages and Foolin' were popular too. Both great songs. I love both of those songs. And for those of you, look, I realize this. Some of you may look at Pyromania as like cheesy 80s metal, but you know, I grew up, like, you got to understand, I learned guitar with this stuff. I was learning guitar when this album was coming out. So to me, listen to these songs, they have such an emotional memory for me. You know, like I was learning these guitar parts when I was learning guitar. And Foolin', Foolin', doo-doo-doo. That's how I learned electric guitar. So this album kind of has a special meaning more for me than somebody that have nothing to do with it. You know, they're listening to it the first time. They may think, well, this is kind of cheesy. But, you know, when growing up in the 80s and learning guitar in the 80s, you know, Def Leppard was huge. Okay, so in 2004, Pyromania was certified diamond. This album was certified diamond in sales, having sold over 10 million copies in the United States. All right, let me keep going. In a Gallup poll in 1984, Def Leppard were more popular than the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, and Journey. Combined. No, not combined. All right, the band moved to Dublin, Ireland, because England was taxing the shit out of them. So they moved there in 1984 for tax reasons, and they began writing a follow-up to Pyromania. And Mutt Lange originally joined the songwriting sessions, but he just became just overwhelmed, and he was exhausted. So he just said, "Guys, I gotta lay this one out." So instead, they got Jim Steinman. He came in as the producer. Steinman had produced Meatloaf's "Bat Outta Hell." So there they are, putting out hellish things. On December 31st, 1984, Rick Allen, the drummer, lost his left arm. And I remember this so vividly. I remember sitting, we call it the playroom. It was where our music stuff was. And a friend told me the news. It was probably in Rolling Stone. It was probably on the rock radio. They announced it. And I just remember looking at it. We had black and red carpet. I was just staring at the carpet, just sitting at the top of the stairs, just thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I mean, it was like such a shock to realize he was going around a curve. He was with his girlfriend, I think Dutch girlfriend. He was going around a sharp curve around Sheffield, I think on the A57. And yeah, he just took it too fast and he hit a wall and they had to amputate his arm. So at that point, he remained the drummer, but of course he went through a recovery period. Def Leppard was with them and they supported him, and they're like, man, yeah, we're not going to seek another drummer. Do what you do to recover, and let's take it from there. But yeah, that floored me hearing that news. I still remember that day. So he practiced, and Rick, the drummer, after 3 months of recovery, he gathered the whole band together, and it was a very emotional moment. He played When the Levee Breaks from Led Zeppelin, the doo-doo-ka, doo-doo-doo-ka. And I guess he played it well, and the band was, you know, very excited that he was back at it. He could play it. So, let me back up a little bit. Simmons, the drum company, electronics company, had talked to Rick, and they designed him a special drum set for, you know, not having use of his arm. What was it, his left arm? Yeah, lost his left arm, so he only had his right arm. So they designed a special drum set for him. So I guess that's what he played for the band, but I'm not sure. But on tour, yeah, he played a Simmons drum kit, which was specially designed for him due to his losing his arm. So, yeah. Moving on. Let's see. All right. So at this point, so much time had passed, Mutt was back on the project, because I guess Mutt had a little bit of time to recover too, in his own way. And they showed Steinman as the producer. So, and let me show you a picture of Mutt. Mutt Lange. This guy's probably rolling in money. He's produced, I'm assuming that's a picture from the 80s, but he's produced so many big rock albums, hugely successful. He probably like bathes in money every night. All right, so let's see. Hysteria. This album that they were working on after Pyromania was a huge success. I mean, that was bigger than Pyromania. It had the singles Animal, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Woman, Love Bites, Armageddon, Rocket. All of those were huge hits, if I remember right. Couldn't go anywhere, the grocery store or the gym, without hearing that song on those songs on the radio. Following Hysteria, the band quickly returned to work on their fifth album, but guitarist Steve Clark's alcoholism became more and more of a problem. And during the recording sessions, he suffered from distraction. So in the mid-90s, Clark was granted a 6-month leave of absence from the band to get his stuff together. But Clark unfortunately died of a mix of prescription drugs and alcohol on January 8th, 1991. In his London home. So that was a very sad loss. It's funny because I watched the photograph video before I made this video, and you could tell, well, first of all, the video is cool. It's like all them, lip syncing to the song. I mean, most of the video is them playing live, lip synced, of course, but, Marilyn Monroe's in it, and the half-naked girls are in cages, which is a total 80s thing, metal thing. But anyway, I looked at Steve Clark, and yeah, he did look like all the other members of the band were like playing rock star, and Steve looked a little bit more like demure, like a little more introspective and shy maybe. So you could even tell in the video maybe that was more of his personality that led to alcoholism, but that's just conjecture on my part. He's the one on the far left in the Pyromania, in the photograph video. All right, so Vivian Campbell replaced Steve Clark. He joined the band in 1992, and he did guitar and backing vocals, and I think he's still with them. Adrenalize was released in 1992, and after Adrenalize, Def Leppard released 6 more albums, which I don't know a lot of their later albums. I'm mainly reviewing the first 3 here, focusing on Pyromania. Look, Hysteria, this is my opinion. It's hard to put into words. I think about Hysteria like I think about Metallica's Black Album, or REM's Out of Time, or Van Halen's OU812. They're all good albums, but they're so kind of commercial, and they were so big and on the radio everywhere, and the stuff was not as organic as the first albums. I mean, there's a difference between Van Halen 1, 2, Fair Warning, and OU812. I mean, besides the obvious difference of, Sammy Hagar instead of David Lee Roth. But even just focusing on, not focusing on the singer, just the music. Or REM, Shiny Happy People is totally different than Murmur or Reckoning or Fables of the Reconstruction. I mean, Out of Time, REM, it's got some good songs. I think overall it's a pretty good album. I think Metallica Black Album is good. I like a lot of the songs, but it's had so many hits, and it's got that commercial. They're trying to be commercial. So I don't want to badmouth any of these albums. Hysteria, Metallica's Black Album, OU812, or Out of Time. I realize those are kind of disconnected examples, but that's how I feel about Hysteria. It was just so huge, and the album is just so over the top produced. I mean, the snare drum sounds like a bomb going off. I don't know. I don't want to badmouth it. Like I say, it's good. The tunes are catchy, but that was at the point where I kind of signed off and said, all right, you guys can take Def Leppard from here. I'm gonna listen to the Smithereens or something at this point. But anyway, so I would totally get Pyromania. It's a good album. This is the album cover again. Yeah, it's kind of 80s heavy metal, hair band rock, sure. But it's got a lot of cool stuff on it. And I would also recommend, this is pretty decent album too. And this is very good. I like this just about as good as Pyromania, High and Dry. It's not black and white like this. This is just a Xerox. So yeah, I've probably listened to Pyromania 6 million times. Actually, that's a lie. I probably listened to it more like 100,000 times. Even that number is probably too high. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll check you guys later. This is Frosty the Songman of Red Radio Reviews.